The second reason is because think about who the China tariffs would hurt most. Apple. But think about who's cozied up to Trump and donated $1 million to his inaugural fund and did the obligatory dinner at Mar-a-Lago. Tim Cook. In other words, he petitioned the king and he got his carve-out, his requisite carve-out. And that's how this works, because Trump only takes care of those who first pledge something to him. A couple weeks back, I spoke about this concept of petitioning the king, where Trump would impose blanket tariffs, knowing full well that the only way that those could be removed is if people or companies or countries came groveling and offered him something financial or political in exchange for him lifting those tariffs. And of course, all the while, it is Americans who are the collateral damage, who have to suffer the financial consequences of a crashing stock market, gutted 401ks, high costs, all while Trump carries out his quid pro quos to help himself. And so in this case, Apple got its carve out because Trump got $1 million from Tim Cook, and so they'll be okay. Which basically tells you that A, Trump's default position is that he is perfectly willing to destroy the economy while he waits for his gifts and political favors, and B, that while the Apples of the world can afford to pay him off, can afford to give $1 million handouts, it is the little guys who can't. It's the mom and pop shops, the small businesses that aren't the richest companies on earth and who can't petition the king for carve-outs, who are going to die on the vine here. And frankly, Trump doesn't care, because they can't give him anything of value. And if he doesn't get anything, then he is not interested. And this is the part worth paying attention to, because Trump has coasted off his branding as some champion for American business, but in reality, this is going to kill countless American businesses. He doesn't care about bolstering business. He cares about protecting himself and his own interests. He puts America's small businesses out of business because he needed to set up a process by which the only way anybody can survive in this country is if you have something of value to surrender to the king. That is the danger of electing somebody whose first, second, and third priority is himself and himself alone. Next up are previews of my interviews with Senator Booker and Senator Warren, but first, just a quick reminder that on one video per week, my video podcast, there are sponsors, so here's a quick word from some sponsors, and then previews of my interviews with Senator Booker and Senator Warren. No Lie is brought to you by the Merchants Payments Coalition. Credit card companies are ripping you off, and you don't even know it. Every time you use a credit card, they charge a hidden swipe fee, which costs an average family more than $1,100 per year. Credit card companies and their Wall Street banking partners raked in a record $172 billion on those fees in 2023. $172 billion with a B. Americans are paying the highest swipe fees in the world, and with no competition, swipe fees have nowhere to go but up. But the good news is that the House and Senate have a bipartisan bill to fix this problem. It's called the Credit Card Competition Act. The Credit Card Competition Act would make credit card companies and their Wall Street partners compete like every business is supposed to. It would save you, your family, everyone who swipes a credit card hundreds or even thousands of dollars per year. So call your senators and representatives, tell them to pass the Credit Card Competition Act. No Lie is brought to you by Uplift Desk. So if you work in front of a desk like I do, I know that I often find myself discouraged that I spent yet another day sitting for long periods of time. I seriously thought that this would be a lasting problem until I found Uplift Desk. Uplift Desk is at the forefront of ergonomic solutions, promoting better posture and health through adjustable standing desks designed to help you live a healthier lifestyle. Plus, they have all kinds of accessories to keep you moving throughout the day, even if you work only for a few hours at your desk. I know for me personally, there is a shelf that I like that I put my monitor on. This way I have the full real estate for my desk. Standing while I work gives me the room to move and helps me get the creative juices flowing. Moving throughout the day helps me focus and stay productive. I'm way more alert when I'm using my standing desk and I have more energy. Also, as far as health benefits are concerned, a 45-degree bend in your neck can result in up to 50 pounds of gravitational force being placed on your neck muscles. The option to move while I work promotes better circulation, which can reduce all types of different health risks and repetitive strains. So look, a desk should fit the user, which is why Uplift Desk has a lot of customization options so you can build your perfect workspace. With more than 200,000 configurations, Uplift Desk allows you to tailor your workspace to perfectly suit your style and needs, empowering you to create an environment that inspires productivity and creativity. Make this year yours by going to upliftdesk.com/BTC and use our code BTC to get 4 free accessories, free same-day shipping, free returns, and an industry-leading 15-year warranty that covers your entire desk and an extra discount off your entire order. That's upliftdesk.com/BTC for a special offer, and it's only available at our link. Stand, move, thrive with Uplift Desk. Well, you know that Trump is going to point to this and say patriotism is actually enduring this pain that I myself am voluntarily causing, because that will show that you're willing to sacrifice for what he would say is the greater good in this moment. And yet the irony of all of that is that by virtue of voluntarily crashing the economy, by virtue of voluntarily crashing the stock market, by virtue of voluntarily plummeting everybody's 401ks, now there are people who, for example, were expecting to retire at this moment and can't afford to. There are people who can't afford just their daily expenses that we're seeing right now. And so what would your response to Trump's pushback to that, saying real patriotism is supporting what I'm doing in my efforts here to carry on this trade war?
I mean, that is utter bullshit. And the reason why, it's for a guy who spends the weekend on his golf course and brags to the media about him winning a tournament, while the struggling and the suffering and the fear and the anxiety and the people that write to me about things, they can't sleep thinking about what a 10% or a 5% cut to Medicaid. What he's just saying is endure pain. He's not enduring any pain. Right. This is the kind of gross arrogance of a Marie Antoinette saying, let them eat cake. This is the worst for a billionaire to be lecturing us about suffering economic pain when there is utterly no wisdom, strategy, economic formula that shows what he's doing is actually going to help this country in the long run. And we know this. Nobody's going to be building a factory right now. No, businesses are telling me I'm not making any investments in this climate of uncertainty with this president that is so chaotic and so quixotic that you don't know what he's going to do. So screw him for telling people to accept pain. You know what? This pain has been going on a long time. Half of this country has been worse off economically, half of us, while a very narrow margin has been doing better and better and better. The margin is him and his cabinet have been doing better and better, and they can suffer a little bit of increased prices because it's such a small blip on their economic screen. While increased prices for folks in all across America, from rural areas to urban areas who are barely making ends meet, this is a catastrophe for their lives. And screw him for not having the kind of empathy for the struggles of Americans right now because of the pain he is fundamentally, singularly causing to people in America.
There is evidence that certain shares were bought in the minutes preceding Donald Trump's announcement that he would do a 90-day pause on the tariffs. So what happens now? Like, what can you do? What can the Senate Democrats do in light of this happening to try and gather some information here?
So just think of it this way. Here's Donald Trump out there saying all kinds of stuff. He drives the market way down, goes totally into the toilet, gets flushed, moves through the pipes, and then he changes the whole thing and it shoots way back up.
Right.
Something happens in between those 2 points. And that is right before he makes those announcements that make the market say, yay, fabulous, he's not as crazy as we thought. A bunch of people buy shares of stock. And they buy what are called calls so that they can leverage and buy even more shares of stock on very little money. The SEC ordinarily would just stop and investigate. They say, whoa, is this either insider trading, that is, few people were tipped off about what was going on, or is it just straight up market manipulation, even if it happens out in public? The SEC would ordinarily do that, but this is now Donald Trump's SEC.
Right.
So that's the real problem we've got here.
Well, I guess now it becomes a fact-finding mission, and the onus is really on the folks who are going to do the work. And I want to get back to that in just a moment, because I don't want to let the DOJ, the FBI, and the SEC off the hook just because we know that they're going to act in a way that's corrupt. That doesn't give them license to act in a way that's corrupt with impunity. But is there even a way to find out who bought the calls? For example, if there's folks in the administration, if there's folks in the House or the Senate?
Yep, there are records on this. And that's how it is that the SEC and the Department of Justice actually go after people. And if you think they can't track this down, ask Martha Stewart. Right. And remember?
But do you need buy-in from the SEC to be able to do this? Is this something that Congress has the power to do without buy-in from the SEC, and also that Senate Democrats would be able to do from the minority?
So the people who have access to the information are people who are in law enforcement, because the question here